Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce you now. Brian Wiley is a certified health coach who has struggled with food addiction and battled with obesity for most of his life. Being advised with mainstream approaches as his solution, along with the standard advice to eat less and move more, resulted in minimal or no weight loss success with eventual weight regain. In 2009, he reached his highest weight of 265 pounds. His doctors advised and encouraged him to take medications after his blood glucose, blood pressure, and cholesterol reached dangerous levels at the age of only 35. His commitment to a low carbohydrate lifestyle resulted in a 100-pound weight loss, and he was able to reverse his abnormal health markers, improving his heart health and avoiding type 2 diabetes. Brian has maintained his weight loss for the last 14 years. That's awesome. And became an ACE certified personal trainer. Brian is currently a health coach at Toward Health, where their amazing coaches have been through the struggle of endless diets. And they are here to help people break the cycle. Toward Health doesn't offer cookie cutter advice, but instead provides realistic, sustainable change and personalized support and create programs that fit their clients' lives, leading them to lasting health. Brian Wiley, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you to Balanced Body Radio.
Oh man, thanks a lot for having me.
Absolutely. It's a long time coming, my friend. We were just chatting about how we met over 2 years ago in Denver at the Low-Carb 2023 show, which unfortunately was the last time they've had that conference, which was an amazing conference. And yeah, we've been trying to put this together for a while, and it's so great to have you on the show. And I can't say enough about the work that you guys do at Toward Health. You guys are really leading the charge and creating things that have not been created before. Like you're starting to see like other programs, other ways of doing things where people are copying, what has been done. But you guys are building from the ground up things that I have never seen before and are making so many changes in other people's lives. So I have so much respect for all of you and the amazing work that you do.
Man, we appreciate it.
Yeah. I do want to talk about your story, and I want to talk about your work at Toward Health and some of the things you guys offer. We can even get into the Toward study that just got released not too long ago. But man, hearing your story and knowing your story and thinking about like man, traumatic events that happen in all our lives. It's tough because it's so relative. You could hear somebody's traumatic story of like growing up in a gang in LA or something, and yeah, that doesn't compare to the type of trauma I grew up in. Mormon culture here in Salt Lake City, Utah. But we all experience them, and it's all relative, right? And so it's hard to compare. And when I hear your story about growing up and all the things that happened to you, man, that's pretty heavy stuff. Not that easy to deal with for sure.
Right, yeah, definitely the 70s and 80s were a different time, so there wasn't a lot of filters for the fat kid in school.
Yeah, totally. Well, I don't know where you want to start this story, but yeah, how did that all evolve for you?
Yeah, so I would say my weight started to become an issue when I was in second grade. I know that's kind of when things blew up, and I think a lot of that had to do with up until that point, my parents, the family ate mostly home cooked meals and things like that, and McDonald's, pizza, going out to eat, stuff like that. That was kind of maybe a once a month thing, a rare occasion. But I think that what contributed that summer, like kind of with the weight blowing up, and then afterward is, mom started working and dad was putting in, long hours. So I was left with a setter who didn't cook, and so all those home cooked meals and all that stability kind of got upended and came in the processed foods, all the quick things like the cereal, snack cakes, ice cream, microwave stuff. All that was kind of what was replaced in the fridge and the cupboards. And just speaking one of those moments, I think the reason I realized that I had a weight issue at that point is honestly I didn't know at that time. And I remember one day right before school started, I was in the back seat of my dad's car, and we had stopped at a family friend's house, and I was pretending to be asleep because I didn't want to get out of the car and mess with the adults and stuff. So anyway, I remember my dad's friend came up to the window and was looked in the I could tell he looked in the back seat because he had told my dad, he said, "Wow, Brian's got fatter than a pig. What are you guys feeding him?" And I remember that just kind of sticking with me. And I remember thinking, man, school's starting in 2 weeks, and like, there's no way I'm gonna, lose weight in 2 weeks and be normal. And I started kind of started panicking right there because, like I told you before, I knew what was waiting for me. As soon as I got to school, it was going to be kind of day in, day out, teased, made fun of, bullied, all that kind of stuff. And
Brutal.
unfortunately, that's kind of exactly how it was. And fortunately, neighborhood I grew up in and the schools we went to, even the people that are supposed to protect you, like the teachers, the principals, they were in on it too. Like, you were fair game. There was really no escape for anybody. But I said this kind of continued through intermediate school, and by the time I was in eighth grade, I was completely in a cycle where I just started eating and stayed in the house most of the time, and just tried to avoid people. And I'd say, out of everything I dealt with, I'm trying to throw more, crazy stories, but that moment in eighth grade, it kind of came to a peak where I was in the lunchroom line waiting for my food, and um, the crowd, like, the kids were really rowdy that day, and the principal was all worked up, and he walked around with a megaphone, and he would just scream at kids all day. So he got really upset that day, um, because everybody was being rowdy, and I had just got my food, and he told everybody to sit down, shut up, but I didn't have nowhere to sit. I don't know what was going on that day, but couldn't find a seat. And I remember he just started screaming, like, I remember one time he said, "Hey, fat ass, go find a seat, sit down. I told you to sit down." And then he just started calling me moose and making moose sounds. So of course, you know what happened, Casey, with kids like that. Like, that was my nickname the rest of the year, after that. But you know the but luckily, ninth grade, um, hormones hit. I hit a growth spurt, and I was, that was the first time in my life that my weight had stabilized and normal. But honestly, I tell people this all the time. I was heavy for so long, and got made fun of for so long, that I was almost 2 years into a normal weight before I realized I wasn't, overweight anymore. And when I heard other kids getting teased or whatever, I just kind of assumed they were talking to me. That's kind of how bad it was back then. But
Oh,
yeah, luckily I had that little brief period. And yeah, so fast forward through high school. Um, I had my first daughter immediately at the end of high school. So, life started right then and there after high school. I got a sedentary job. Now I've got work stress, life stress, new baby, and my weight. So my eating habits didn't change. So everything kind of packed up on me. And like I said, it came on pretty quick, pretty heavy. And I'd say by the time I was 23, I was already kind of like over the 225 mark, probably even more. I kind of stopped weighing in at that point. Um, and so, just to fast forward, I think I tried between 20 and 30. I tried all that mainstream stuff. I tried to do Weight Watchers, calorie counting, Nutrisystem, all the mainstream things. Nothing was working out for me. I'd maybe lose 5, 10 pounds, and I'd fall off. I'd gain that 5, 10 pounds back and throw another 10, 20 on top of it. And so that kind of went on till age 30. And I don't know about you, Casey. When I hit 30, something clicked. Something about the number 30. I was like, I got to get in shape. Like, I got to start taking care of myself. And so I decided, okay, it's time for me to get serious about my health, lose this weight. And by this time, I had both my daughters were really young, and I knew I was getting older. I didn't know my family history, and so anyway, I started eating better, just trying to do the calories in, calories out, eating more vegetables, things like that. I joined the Y, worked out 3 times a week, and honestly, And we'll fast forward again. I did that for 5 years. I was pretty consistent with my meals and working out and everything. And I had at this time I was into plumbing, so my job was pretty active. And honestly, I think that's what kept my weight from probably going in the 300 plus mark, is because I was so active. But also I got to back up a little bit. I did get me a doctor at age 32. Started going to my annual checkups, all that kind of stuff. And from age 30 to 35, each year I went to my doctors, I was a little bit heavier. My blood work was a little bit worse, to the point where, kind of when I hit that point where it all came together for me. I was 35, been going to my doctors 5 years, and I was exhausted. And I was mentally, physically, emotionally, wasn't keeping up with my kids. I had no energy to do anything, and every day was a struggle. And I remember that doctor's appointment. I walk in there. That's when I hit the peak of 265. Worst, felt the worst I'd ever felt. And that was the first time my doctor came in. She's saying, "Hey, Brian, we don't know your family history, and your blood work just came back. You're pre-diabetic, blood pressure's high, cholesterol's high." And she was like, "What? Every year you come here, you're in worse shape than the year before." And she's like, "I think we need to start considering medications for all these things. Just get in front of this problem." And when she told me that, it truly scared me. And in my mind, I said to myself, these are all meds my grandparents are on, and I'm only 35 years old, and I'm already like feeling like crap. So I was like, I felt like I was running out of time. I didn't know how much quality of life I had at that point. But it did kind of scare me, and it woke me up. And I said, "Doc, give me one more year. If I come back here next year and I'm on the same path, everything's going like it is now, I'll take your meds. I'll do your advice. I'll do whatever you say at that point." But I was like, just give me a chance to get in front of this thing. And I remember going home, not with no plan. I just knew I had to do something. And I remember thinking, my wife is a nurse practitioner, and I thought, oh man, I got to go home and tell my wife. But I just told my doctor I'm not going to take medication for all these issues I got. But luckily, my wife was really understanding, and she was struggling with her weight at the time as well. And she had already planned about a month later that she was going to start a low carb diet. And I said, "Look, I'll do it with you. I've never done this before. I've never really heard of it, and we'll do it together." And because I was desperate, I wanted to do something. And that January we started, and the weight came off kind of quick at like the first month. So weight came off, my energy levels went up. I was feeling real good, and um, I just kept sticking with it. And by, I think it was about 9 months later, I had my follow up with my doctor, and I was down at that time. I was down about 70 pounds um, through the year. And I went into the doctor's office, and I know I'm dragging these doctor's office visits out, but we didn't have my chart. I didn't know what my blood work was or anything back then until it came out of her mouth. So I remember she walks into the room and she says, "Wow, I looked at your chart. You look great. You lost a lot of weight." And she's going, "What did you do?" Blah blah blah. And unfortunately, I'm sitting there like, yeah, I'm just saying, yeah, I'm just wanting her to get to the blood work, because that's really what scared me into do it in the first place. The weight loss, I want to say, was a side effect of me being trying to avoid the medicine and getting healthy. And she finally came out and said, "Hey, your all your blood work is stabilized. It's in the normal ranges again. We don't want to um you don't have to take no medicine. I'm not going to prescribe that right now." And but she did. So about that time though, Atkins was kind of, that's when he was still getting attacked, and like the social media and everything, they were saying he had passed away from a heart attack instead of the slip and fall in the eye. So there's a lot of negativity about low carb at that particular appointment. And she had said, she's like, Brian, um, I don't know much about low carb, but I've only heard like the negative side of it. But she's like, I can't ignore what I'm looking at. Like, so she's like, I'm gonna keep an open mind. She's like, come back in 6 months. We're gonna come back in 6 months and rerun everything, make sure you're doing okay. And I'm gonna be open minded about it. And so
Wow.
I did that. By the time I came back, that was in the toward the middle of 2010. So a little over a year later, I'd hit the 100-pound mark. Blood work got even a little bit more, and I'll still say that she's still my doctor to this day, all these
Good.
years later. But honestly, I think she's forgot I do low carb now. She just kind of goes about her business, but she doesn't. I don't say she advocates like to other patients and stuff, but she doesn't give me she never once came at me with the like I hear a lot of horror stories of it's bad for you and all this and an interesting story about the in between um me starting this diet and that next doctor's appointment was I was actually having a conversation with Dr. Laura at that Denver conference that we were talking about earlier and I don't remember what we were talking about but it came up. I said, I really didn't enjoy my journey until I went to that doctor's appointment and she told me all this blood work and stuff, reversed. And she said, "Oh, well, why didn't you? Because you was losing weight and you was feeling good and all these other things." And nobody'd asked me that before. Like, "Oh, how did you not enjoy it? Like all these positive things were happening." And you know what, Casey, when I look back at it, I had to think about it, and I thought about it that whole day, and all these memories came back, and I said, I didn't enjoy it because, I mentioned my wife was an NP, so all of her friends were nurses, doctors, surgeons, and I got taken to a lot of medical, get-togethers and stuff like that, and people would start the conversation like, "What? Oh, I see you lost some more weight. What did you do?" Somebody new would come up to me, and I'd say, "Oh, I'm doing low carb," and go, "Oh, don't you know that's horrible for you?" And it's like every one of these events throughout that time was like bringing me down and like putting doubt in my head that this was working. And it wasn't until I finally went to the doctors and saw that all that stuff they were saying was not coming true. And I think it was at that moment too. I said, I'm these people are full of it. I think it's a shame that I've been seeing so many people change their life with low carb and all the years, all the times I went to doctors or seeked help, nobody ever mentioned it to me. And I found it to kind of be disgusting to experience looking me in the face with these positive results and telling me this was going to happen, that was going to happen. And um, so that was nearly 15 years ago. And I'm still here and none of it's came true. So that's kind of my story where I came now and started working
Amazing.
with Tro about 5 years ago. And I've been on that mission ever since with Toward Health. I made it kind of my mission in that moment. Like the doctors are, the doctors likely aren't going to spread the word and tell people this is an option, but anybody that wants to listen, or wants to try this, I'm going to do everything in my power to help them out.
That's amazing. What a cool story. Thank you so very much for sharing that. Yeah, man, it's very fortunate that you were able to have a doctor that at the very least was open-minded enough to say, like, I see I'm observing what's in front of me. Like that alone, if we had more doctors that did that, would be great. And I think after having coached so many people like I have, so many coaching sessions, and such a big percentage of what we do as coaches, a lot of it is like reassuring people because they're feeling really good, they're trying this, they're getting into it, and but other people are chirping at them and telling them that all these bad things are going to happen. So I think a lot of times people just want to be reassured and corrected when their loved ones or neighbors or whoever are telling them they're not going to be able to do this. It's not sustainable. It's a fad. You're going to die of a heart attack or whatever. I think people need that validation. So yeah, good for you, and I'm so glad you had again a doctor that was willing to kind of be open-minded about that. Going back to your childhood, um, man, we're in a different time. like kids are kids and they still tease each other and whatever, but what you're describing sounds like barbaric, especially by today's standards. Like, did it feel out of place then, or was that kind of normal for the day?
Uh, I would say it felt normal just because that's what I was
That's
used
what you
to.
knew. Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, definitely looking back on it, um, you would be fired, canceled, like all that stuff these
Oh,
days for just
totally.
a portion of the things that I had said to me and done.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, kid to kid again is one thing, but when the teachers are giving it to you, like,
Yeah,
really? That's crazy.
it's
Wow.
tough. It was
Wow.
tough.
So as a food addiction specialist now, when you look back again on your childhood, your teenage years, your 20s, would you have identified yourself as a food addict or a sugar addict at the time? Or was it just your, I don't know, run of the mill, you're just eating the foods that are around and the foods that are convenient?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have had thought that back then. I probably would have never put that together. But definitely looking back on it now, I don't know a better word for it, to be honest with you, because I wasn't just using it wasn't, I also grew up in the fat free stage, or the fat was bad. So it was just like a double whammy. Like it was a lot of people probably don't remember this, but the processed foods, the microwave stuff, and the fat free craze was all kind of coming in at the same time, and it was just like a tidal wave of bad information. But I think I was more confused because I was an active kid. Like that's the thing people don't believe or don't understand is I rode my bike every day. I played outside up until the point, I just didn't feel like it. And I was still gaining weight. I was a little obese kid, jumping the curbs on his bike and everything every day. And I just couldn't understand. I think the biggest problem I have, one thing I can remember is saying to myself, how am I not the same size of my friends when we're eating the same thing and we're playing and we're doing the same stuff? And I just didn't understand it. You almost get to a point where you think something's wrong with you. But definitely thinking back, I was actually talking about this today is not only was that was the food that was available and a lot of it was being pushed as healthy, but at the same time, I was using it to treat whatever emotion I was going through. It didn't matter if I was happy, if I was sad, and whatever it was, I was treating it with food. Like there was a food for every emotion, and unfortunately, all those foods were bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even well, yeah, like you said, the healthy foods of the time, like switching from white bread to wheat bread at one point, or having the margarine, or all these things you think are so good. Like it would be, unconscionable for a parent to not give you that kind of food that they thought was really good for you and low fat. So yeah, I get it. And yeah, it's interesting to look back and see where the roots of like food addiction kind of lie. I have a tough time identifying whether I was a kid or not. Like I definitely loved hoarding candy and loved Halloween and anytime I could get, whatever candy, I loved it. But man, it's even like more recent. Like I definitely now call myself a food addict and I don't often cheat on my carnivore diet. And a few weeks ago I decided to and I ordered a pizza, big mountain of meat pizza, and it's big. And like my wife has a slice or two and she can stop. And I have three slices and I'm like, I'm good. I'm not hungry anymore. So I have another one. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm like uncomfortably full. I don't feel that good. I'm going to have another slice. And then it's like there's one more staring me in the face. Like I could throw this away, but I'm like, well, I don't want to throw it away. I paid for it. So I eat the other one and my stomach just kills me. It's so stupid. It's so
Yeah,
dumb. And so now currently I look at myself as like, dude, you need to abstain. You can't mess with this stuff. And the days after, it's a good day and a half, 2 days of like you have to really be careful because you're on a bit of a knife edge. And like I'm looking at food that I wouldn't normally look at and like, well, that looks good. Well, I could have that candy bar. Well, I could just do this one thing and I could be right off the back end again. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
it's really tough.
Yeah, man, I can tell you, I went through that in my beginning of my journey. Is I hate putting my it's making me sound so old when I talk like this, but it wasn't that long ago. In 2009, when I started this, there wasn't a lot of bridges such as the replacement foods and things like that. So I can honestly say I went 8 months before I ate something off plan, and I still remember that meal like it was yesterday, and it was on vacation. Again, I don't really want to make excuses, but I was feeling good. I was really confident. I had had a bunch of success up to this point, and it was vacation. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take one day, and I'm going to eat whatever we is around on vacations. I wasn't familiar with the surroundings we were going to, and anyway, we saw in Ohio we would always see these IHOP commercials, but we didn't have one anywhere near us. And we just so happened to be driving through Maryland, and it was like it was almost like perfect timing. Everybody was going, I'm getting a little hungry. Let's stop at the next exit and eat. And I saw on the next exit there was an IHOP. And I had always said, if I ever come across an IHOP, I'm getting some pancakes there. I was like, and we just took off on the exit and we got in the restaurant, and they had it may sound good, but it was white chocolate macadamia nut pancakes.
Oh my goodness.
And this is a pattern that I saw repeat, and it goes in line with exactly what you just said about the pizza. I remember the first couple of bites were really good, and then the couple after that wasn't as good. But in my mind, I was saying, "Oh, it'll." I just kept eating, so I was like, maybe the next thing's going to be better, And I got through the whole stack, and by the time I got through it, like you said, I felt so horrible. I couldn't even drive the rest of the way. My wife had to drive the rest of the way to the vacation spot because I was like almost doubled over it. It hit me hard. And what was interesting is we get to the hotel, and I said, "Well, this was my day." I said it. I was laying there, Casey. I felt like crap after eating these pancakes. And it's so funny you mentioned this. That's what they ordered. We got to the hotel, and they were like, "Let's." The only thing around here is pizza. And I was like, "Oh, that sounds good. I haven't had pizza in a while." And even though I'm feeling bad, something's telling me this pizza is going to be amazing for some reason.
Let's hit the spot.
Yeah, and it did. Like that first slice did, but then, like you said, I eat the second one. I was like, well, maybe there was something wrong with that one, and I just kept doing it, and I even did that with the first couple years until keto kind of started getting popular and sweeteners and recipes came out. I really struggled with the holidays and special occasions, like a handful of times a year. I was fortunate that I felt so horrible that I would just jump right back on track. Like I hated the way I felt after.
Yeah.
Um,
That's why you need those moments. And like when my clients tell me like I went off and I felt terrible, it's like good. Yeah. The food you thought was going to taste good wasn't even that good anyway. And you felt terrible for a few days. So it's good. It's a good reminder. It just sucks.
yeah, because you shouldn't feel that way after eating
Totally.
food, right? And that
Totally.
that kind of blows you away, don't it? It's like I ate like that every 3, 4 times a week back in the
Yeah.
day, and I didn't notice I felt that horrible
Yeah.
until I got it out of my system.
Totally. Yeah. So a phenomenon happens here in the wintertime in Salt Lake City where since we're in a valley, it's kind of like a bowl. And after a really cold storm, if a high pressure kind of front moves through and it's actually like really nice weather, what happens is it seals off the pressure in the valley so that
Uh-huh.
no air can really escape. And so it's called an inversion and it gets to be extremely polluted inside the valley. But when you're in it, you look around and there's not a cloud in the sky and it's blue sky, so it looks pretty normal. But then when you like drive up to a ski resort or drive up to Park City and look back, you see this like sludge, like this dirty, nasty sludge. You're marinating in, all the car pollution and flatulence from people eating too much fiber, whatever it is. And it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, but you don't know it when you're in it. And so I try to always point that out. Like if you always eat that stuff, you probably won't feel as bad as if you start eating better and then have one meal and then you realize like, holy cow, this stuff is terrible for me.
Yeah, and I want to know. I'd like to touch a little bit on kind of some moments I went through because we opened up talking about kind of addiction and that, and I think when I looked back and I realized like I think I did have an addiction, I was able to see it those moments I was just talking about, like on the holidays, and this is this is something I don't know if I've shared in many podcasts, but what I used to do is if I knew it was going to be a special occasion and I was going to eat off plan, I would literally go to the grocery store the day before and I would buy everything kind of from my childhood or anything that looked good. So I would come home and there would be like this. I have pictures somewhere. I'm gonna have to post them one day if I find which old phone they're on. But I would have like a half of our countertop would be full of cookies, box. Like I would go to Krispy Kreme and get a couple dozen donuts of different kinds, and just an idiotic amount of food would be on the something I couldn't even eat in 1 or 2 days, but I'd have it there. And what I think was interesting about that is, I'm going to use the donuts as an example, but I did this with all the cookies and everything else that I bring in the house. But the donuts, what would happen is I'd wake up and I'd go, "Oh, today's the day I'm going to eat whatever I want," and I'd go to the donuts. I would pick a donut up, take a bite of it, eat it, and if it didn't light me up, if it didn't hit that reward, I'd put it down and I'd grab a different, like a different flavored donut.
Oh, wow.
And I would take bites out of every different donut that I got, and the wife and kids would wake up and they'd go, I'd get in trouble, right? Because I took bites out of all the donuts. And I was like, and I couldn't figure out why I did it. They go, "Why did you do that?" And I'd go, I don't know. Because I was already on to I was in food brain at that point, right? So now I'm into the cookies and everything else. But that's what I did. And if cookies didn't hit, I'd go to a pastry. If the pastry didn't hit, I'd go to ice cream. Like I just kept, and then when I look back on it, I hate really comparing it to drugs, but I think what I was getting wasn't hitting, and I was looking like I was just trying to find that hit that shut that off, but it never came. So by the time I kind of plowed through bits and pieces of all this, again, I went through that cycle where I felt horrible and I jumped back on track. But as the in that couple year time, what I noticed is if something didn't if something didn't make the cut, like if something didn't really light me up or taste good, it didn't make the cut to the next one. So my countertop, when I would have these, they kept getting smaller each time that I'd have one till I only had a few items left. And I think honestly, I do think the keto movement did kind of help me because those few things that I had left were things that I could make keto versions of, and that helped me really eliminate the cheat days and that spiral that I was on during those times.
Yeah. I love using those kinds of things for a short-term bridge
Hmm.
through the adjustment period. Eventually, I think most people realize like, oh, I should just stick with the whole foods and not try to make the almond flour versions of everything. But in the short term, it's really, really helpful. You feel like you want that comfort food, or you're gonna die if you never have a cake again. And so you can find those workarounds now that are much more accessible. And I'm also curious, like you mentioned that your wife brought home, came home and said she was doing a weight loss contest or whatever it was, and you
Right.
mentioned low carb, but it wasn't called low carb at the time, or wasn't called keto at the time. This is 2009. Do you remember what it was or what the plan kind of said to do essentially?
Oh yeah, it was definitely low carb. In fact, I want to say the height of keto probably wasn't out to about 3 to 4 years into my journey. like with the, being mainstream like it is
Yeah.
now. But basically, what my wife had, and I can't believe I didn't mention this, she basically had the old school 70s Atkins induction phase printed out on 2 sheets of paper. So basically, I was sticking to the 20 carbs a day. I was prioritizing the protein and vegetables, and I was like just avoiding everything on it was a eat this, not that list. But I think what was, I'd say the only thing that was different about how I started that maybe we do in the practices at that time, Atkins said you had to get 15 of your 20 carbs from vegetables. Well, you had to get 12 of your, I think it was 12 out of your 20 carbs as vegetables. So I did have a hard time, trying to get 12 net carbs and vegetables in every day. So, but look, our brains are wired to find the hack, right? So what did I do? I was like, what's the highest carb acceptable vegetables I can find so I can knock them out for the day and just slam the protein the rest of the day. And I came up with like Brussels sprouts and asparagus were kind of my go-tos because I had
Funny.
a little handful of them. But honestly, that's how kind of my evolution went. Is I did I did the Atkins induction phase. My carbs went up a little. I think went between 30 to 40 after I kind of when I hit the maintenance phase. Um, but then keto came out. I went through the whole slamming as much fat as you can routine, and that caught up to me. And I did. I won't say I did carnivore. I did it for like a month as an experiment when it got popular. But then I did add I was actually eating more protein that time after doing that experiment. But at the end of the day, I kind of have circled back to what I did in the beginning. And I think if I had to look at my diet now, I'd say it's probably under 50 grams of carbs most days. I prioritize proteins, fats, and vegetables. And if I'm in a pinch, if I'm having a rough time, I'll lean on those keto products we talked about. But I luckily a lot of the patients and the wear CGMs, so we're able to identify a lot of the keto foods that are acceptable and which ones are falsely packaged, and I've got a pretty good short list of go-tos that shut that craving down and kind of help me, keep stable.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, you answered a question I was going to ask you, which is, if I came to you with that original meal plan and said, "Hey, I want to try this low carb stuff. Here's my plan. I'm just going to do this. What do you think?" It sounds like you would not say that I was miles away. You'd probably say like, "Yeah, this is going to be great. Just go ahead and do this, and you'll be fine," kind of thing.
Yeah, I would say
It's cool.
I would say I would say, hey, I would kind of give you the same thing. I would say, here's a list of some proteins and fats to prioritize. Here's a short list of replacement foods if you're, filling wheat, and avoid these. But I would say stick to those low carb foods on that list. Try to stay at 30 grams of carbs per day. Eat when you're hungry. Eat till you're full until you get those ketones built up. Because once those ketones get built up, regardless of how much you're eating that first 4 to 6 weeks, like your appetite's going to start to suppress, your cravings are going to go down, and then that's truly when you should do fasting and maybe start exercising and things like that. When you get your look, if you don't address your hunger and cravings, I don't care what diet plan you try to go on,
Yeah.
it's likely not going to work.
Totally. Well, it sounds like currently I would get happier news from you today if I pushed back and said, "Oh man, I don't want to eat Brussels sprouts." You'd be like, "Well, you don't have to." So that's nice.
Yeah,
I
yeah, definitely.
appreciate that. Yeah, it's cool. You mentioned the dropout of hunger and this satiation, and people talk about intermittent fasting, and it's so nice to say, you know what, like do the foods first, like you just said, like make sure your food is making you very satiated. And then fasting is just what happens naturally. There were several days this week that I fully intended on eating a meal of several eggs around lunchtime, and I got busy or the weather was nice. I wanted to go on a walk, and it was just like eating is like inconvenient right now. I know my tummy will rumble, but that's the only thing you feel. I'm just going to fast, and it's so easy, convenient, saves time, saves money. It's so much better to focus on really getting that high amount of the things that you're talking about. A sufficient amount of fat, focus on protein, eat until you're fully satiated, stop when you're not, and then you're like easily doing intermittent fasting, and it doesn't have to be a thing, you know?
Yeah, definitely. That's the
It's
way to
awesome.
go. That's
Yeah.
that's the key to doing it long term and staying consistent.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, tell us about the journey to become a health coach and get all mixed up with Dr. Tro and his amazing programs.
Oh, okay. So this I don't remember all the details of the story, and actually, me and True have actually talked before, like trying to pinpoint when it exactly happened. But the way I met True is at the time I had created my Twitter account just around low carb, just helping people. I wasn't coaching. I was just kind of going through threads, and if somebody had questions I could answer, I would chime in. And I was following like all the popular people and all that. And so Tro, I just so happened going through my feed one day. Tro was like at the tail end of his journey, and this is what I can't remember if he was lose. I don't know if it's like the last 10, the last 20, or whatever it was, but he was deep in his journey, like he was almost there. He was like right at the tail end of it. And I remember he was kind of posting his meals, and I remember seeing quite a few things on there, like there was milk, nuts, protein, Quest protein bars. And I just remember reaching out to him and saying, "Hey, I don't think you need that many of those things. Like just try cutting back on it, like tapering off of them or something." I don't remember what the exact advice was, but I thought it was cool. Like here's this doctor who's about to lose 150 pounds, and he's on here asking people for advice, and he's actually taking it and not like ridiculing people, but just like a true doctor should. He'd say why. He'd ask you why. And even though I didn't have the scientific version, I was like, hey, I've been there, I did that, I've overdid these things, and I've noticed when I cut them back, you know, good things happen. And um, can't even tell you if it was his exercise or he actually. I know he did cut back on those things, and he did eventually hit his goal. And I'm not saying I had anything to do with that, but that's how we met, like just kind of chiming back and forth on different things. And he was interested in my story, and you know he liked the advice. Like he took my advice because I had been doing it. Oh, so I was probably a decade in at that point. So
I would
like
remind him daily if you did that. I would say I absolutely was the one that changed your life, and then you'd
oh,
still be eating Quest bars.
no, he probably look that the man is amazing, really smart. I'm sure he he would have figured it out. But so yeah, we just kind of chimed back and forth. We never really had it was just Twitter interactions. And um I saw one day he was floating around the idea, like one day he'd like to start his own practice and you know open a clinic like he's currently doing. And I remember sending him an email and saying, you're in New York, I'm in Ohio. I'm not even sure what I could do to help or whatever. It's like I just want to help people, and if there's ever a way that I can help, because health coaching wasn't even a thing then. Um, well, it may have been, but I hadn't heard of it. But I said, hey, I'm here. Like, if there's anything I can do to help, I'll do it. And I mean, first step was I remember he opened his practice and he was working solo. And um, one day he reached out and said, hey, I think we might be able to do health coaching. And we're kind of trying to run it past the lawyers and things like that to set it up, see how it works. And he said, you know, I'd love to have you on board if that ever happens. And I said, well, what do I got to do? Because, you know, I wasn't certified in anything. And he said, well, you got to become you got to become a certified health coach. And at the time, ACE was the only place that was like recognized that could get insurance and things like that. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to do that. And that was 2000, that was 2018 when the wheel started moving on this. And but unfortunately, I didn't have any of the pre-qualifications to just jump into the health coaching. So Ace told me the quickest way for me is to do one of their other programs, and I picked personal training. I was like, well, I'll go through your personal training certification, then I'll do the health coaching. So I spent all of about half of 2018, all of 2019 getting those two certifications. Honestly, looking back, I didn't realize how difficult personal training is. I know a lot of people joke about it online, how like, oh, how hard could it be? And all I can tell you people is if you think it's easy and you want to do it, go sign up for ACE or NASM and find out for yourself how easy that certification is. But anyway,
I'm keeping that audio file forever, and I'm going to play it for all of my clients when they make fun of me for not counting to 12 properly.
oh, definitely, man. Like it was tough. It was tough for me, and I liked exercise, but there was a lot of there was a lot of stuff in there that you know they don't teach you just walking around the gym working out. But
Thank you.
I
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
so I did. I went through that, and then I immediately, soon as I passed my exam that week, I got my health coaching materials and went through there. And so fast forward, end of 2019, I did that, and I took my I went and shadowed Tro in 2000 February of 2020. He said, "Hey, well, if you're going, you know, if we're going to consider you for the job and you're going to work here, you know, you got to come shadow me for the week." And I flew out there and shadowed him for a week, and um, came back home, took my personal training. I mean, not my personal training, the health coaching exam that week, passed it. And unfortunately, COVID hit the next week. Like that's when the height of it hit. But luckily, I had got in there, took it, had everything turned in, and I've been working with him ever since February, end of February of 2020.
Amazing. Wow, that's amazing. Well, thank you for the kind words about personal training. It's we do know some things. Trust me. So like I said at the onset of this conversation, we love the work that you guys have done at Toward Health. I've tried to host all of you multiple times to talk about everything that you do. Let's pretend for a second that somebody is just hearing about Toward Health for the first time. Can you describe what sets you guys apart and how you work with people today?
Yeah, I think if I had to pinpoint a few things that sets us apart is you basically have an entire somebody signs up with us, you have an entire team, and I'm talking about the the weight loss program. So what happens is the doctors run labs 3 times throughout the 6 month program. You also are having weekly meetings with a health coach or a doctor, like we alternate every week throughout the 6 months. And I think what sets us apart is you have 24/7 access to your medical and health coaching team. So if you're struggling or you just got a question about one of those products we was talking about, you know, if you're going through the grocery store and you're like, "Hey, this looks good, but I don't know if it's acceptable or not." You can snap a picture of that, send it to me, and hopefully I can hit you right there in the grocery store and go, "Hey, no, that's good," or it's not. And if it's not, I'm going to tell you to look for this while you're at the grocery store. Um, but yeah, any or if you're struggling, you just need to reach out. You need a distraction, like you have 24/7 access. We like to say we're the triple A of health. because I apologize if any of the other health coaches or the doc has said this before or explained it, but I think what's awesome is, look, if you had a flat tire, your car died on the side of the road, and you have no hesitation whatsoever to pick up the phone, call AAA or call whoever your roadside assistant is, and get to where you need to go and get your car taken care of. And the same thing with your bank account. If somebody's taking money out of your account and you get an alert on your phone, or the bank calls you and says, "Hey, there's some abnormal activity," you're gonna get on that phone and you're gonna take care of business and keep that money in your account. But if you're strugg if you're on this path, right, and you're struggling with the pizza, or you're about to cave into Kate, we're not wired to think, "Hey, I should call my doctor, or I should call my health coach and ask them what to do in this situation." We're just not wired to do that. And I think I would encourage anybody, whoever you got as a support system, definitely feel free to do that. That's how we definitely want to change the rethinking of that. Because think of it, if you went to your primary care physician, they told you lose weight, they're not going to tell you how to do it. You're going to go home, you're going to start a plan, and when that plan starts to fall apart, you're not going to call your primary physician and say, "Hey, I'm having issues here, what should I do?" They're not even going to answer that question. But that is what we do, and that's what we want to rewire people and say, "Hey, reach out to us," because at the end of the day, our cars and our bank shouldn't have better support systems in place than our health does. So I like to say we try to get people in that mode of reaching out to us. Um, got 24/7 support, and we just, those weekly meetings are key. Like, meeting somebody that many times in a 6 month period, I think that's the key too. Is things usually can't get out of. Let's say somebody falls off plan the the second we hang up the phone. I'm gonna see you in a week, but if you don't have that accountability, it could be months, but before somebody is kind of reaching out and helping you out.
Yeah. And I love that. It's amazing. And I love also the way that you integrate technology as well. Tell us about how you guys use the continuous glucose monitors and how successful that's been.
Yeah, those are really good too, because honestly, it's more than food. Like, all kind exercise, sleep, stress, like all these other factors show up on those CGMs, and we can address some of those things that I just mentioned, not even counting the food. And what I love about that is the Dr. Tro and Dr. Laura are amazing at going through the blood work and looking at the CGMs and being able to tell patients and clients, like, pinpointing probably exactly what's going on with them. And then they communicate with us, and we work hand in hand with the doctors in creating plans to come up with the game plans for whatever they're struggling with on that CGM. But the good thing is, like you said, what what I really like about the CGM is, you can see, not only are you going to be able to see which foods, we're looking at from a food standpoint, you're going to see which foods mess with you and which ones don't. And we're all individuals, and I think that's what's amazing about it is, some people some people may look, 90% of people may not react to broccoli on a CGM, but there are some people that are. And you would never know that if you're not wearing it. So it gives
Totally.
you can definitely build, you can wear that for 2 weeks, a month, however long you're kind of experiment with your foods, and you can get a pretty good idea of what times kind of affect your blood sugar. But definitely the foods, you can make a pretty good list. You can find, I think it helps pinpoint the things that you wouldn't think are messing with you, but are. And those keto products that we talk about, you can really find out, this says keto on the package, but my CGM says otherwise.
Yep. Always surprised by that kind of thing when somebody would say, like, why is my blood sugar going up after I eat vegetables? And it'd be like, yeah, that makes no sense. And with some people it does. So I think
Yep.
that's a wonderful tool. Man, Brian, there's a few topics we hadn't gotten to today that I'd really still love to. So hopefully we can make time to do this again and we can go into greater depth on some of the points that I wanted to discuss with you. But so glad we got this one in the books and had an awesome chat. I think our audience is going to get a lot out of this, despite us losing a few sponsors. We don't have IHOP as a sponsor anymore. We don't have Quest Bar, unfortunately,
Oh,
anymore as a sponsor. But besides that, I think it was a really productive chat. And you have such an interesting story. And, thinking about the enjoyment you're getting in life, not only working with people, coaching people, sharing successes, but even in your personal life, and the thought of you not having energy to play with your kids. It was 15 years ago, man, and you made a
yeah.
change and tried something and stayed consistent with it, and now get to enjoy the fruits of your labors in a very, very healthy life. So I really appreciate that we were able to do this today. Thank you so very much for taking the time. Where would you like people to go to find you and connect with you and your work?
Well, I would say if anybody out there listening hasn't, you can definitely find me on the Toward Health app. I'm most active on Twitter, and it's Brian Wiley underscore. And on Instagram, where I'm not as active, it's living underscore LCHF. And those are really the platforms that I stick to. But definitely, and if anybody needs coaching or they want to sign up for one of our programs, we have a ton of programs. We've got the medical weight loss, we've got DPC, small group coaching. There's just a ton. I can't even sit here and name everything that we have on the app.
You
But
guys keep adding more and more. Every time I look on there, there's more stuff, and it's all very well done. The programs are great, and having that constant support is just so critical. And it's being shown. You're proving it by the results, and it's absolutely wonderful. So glad you got to do that and make those changes in your own personal life. And yeah, Brian, thank you again so very much for sharing your story with us today. We really, really appreciate you.
and thanks for having me. And like I said, I think things have slowed down, and I do look forward to coming back. And
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. I'd love to have another chat with you. That would be great. We'll look forward to that for sure. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.